Hey guys, I want to explore a really difficult subject this week, and that is the subject of sin. And not just sin, but sin's place in our relationship with God and how God looks at it, what it does to us or in us, and because of what it does to us or in us, how God must deal with it. I think the traditional view of sin and our relationship with God is that because, a good example is because we were driving our car too fast, we got a speeding ticket. We couldn't afford the speeding ticket. We couldn't afford the debt or the punishment. So Jesus came down with his life and said, I can afford your speeding ticket. I'll pay it. That is more of a legalistic system, a system based on a law that's been broken that must be punished. God must punish in order for us to be set free. But what if that is way too simplistic? What if that is a system, at least understood in that way, created more by the mind of humans than the heart of God? Here's another system. Think about the universe as an organism. And think about sin as a virus that has come into the organism. Instead of it being a rule broken, it is a disease or a sickness that has infiltrated, entered in. Now, just like when a virus, a sickness enters into our bodies, the thing we've got to do, right, is get rid of it. We've got to destroy it. It's got to die. That's why the wages of sin is death. That thing has to die. What if it's not so much that we have to die in terms of, now we have to define we, in terms of the we originally created by God, unique, beautiful, sons and daughters of God, the beloved, bearing his image, but that we in us that has been infected by sin. That false self, that ego. That's the thing. What would essentially happen in this sense is that the virus enters in and it latches onto some part of the organism, like a cancer. And so surgically, you've got to go in and whatever that cancer has taken over, it has to be removed. But the who the person is still remains. So sin enters the universe. And the universe is an organism and sin is the disease. So now why does Jesus have to come? Jesus comes in this viewpoint, not so much because someone has to pay the fine. So someone perfect has to be on the cross. It's the Son of God, and the Father has to punish him or allow him to be punished, however you want to think about it. Either way, the Father goes, you have to suffer, because they really should suffer, because they were bad, and because they were bad, they must be hurt for it. But instead, the Father says, I'm going to send the perfect white blood cells. Is it white blood cells that are the immune system, right? That go and attack these bad viruses that get in? Let's say it's a white blood cell. Let's say I'm right on that. So the Father sends in himself, God, his Son, Jesus, as the ultimate white blood cell and says, go into death, which is sin. What we've been doing in the traditional viewpoint is not equating sin with death so much. We've said death is the result of sin. But truly, ultimately, sin and death are synonymous. So he says to Jesus, go into death, go into sin, which happened, by the way, as soon as he was incarnate, as soon as he was born and came into the world, go into it, and from the inside, destroy it, blow it up. You are the ultimate white blood cell. You can go into this death. Now, technically, why did he have to die on a cross? Why did that have to be the end? I don't fully understand that. One theory in this kind of disease model would be that back then the Roman Empire, of course, the great empire and one of the greatest in history, and crucifixion was a common thing. I mean, humanity had fallen to such a low, had been so diseased by sin. The virus had so taken over the organism that humanity was okay with crucifying hundreds of people at a time and putting the crosses on the highway for little children to walk past and see as almost a regular occurrence. So this death on a cross, crucifixion, was the ultimate representation of the infection, the ultimate representation of the disease. And sin is literally death. Sin, a virus entering into the organism that is the whole universe, it's everywhere, destroys everything over time. And it destroys all parts of us. It destroys our physical bodies. It destroys our souls and our spirits and just every part of us. And so this cross, at least visually, was the outward representation of the ultimate form of sin, of death, of the symptom of this virus having infected the universe. So the perfect white blood cell, Jesus, enters into creation in a visible way and says, I am here to defeat the disease of sin once and for all. He begins to defeat it. He is acting out in this mission, in this plan, the moment he's born, because he's entered into it, because sin is all around him. And then he goes ultimately, finally, to the death on the cross, which is the great symbol, the greatest symptom, the greatest picture, the ultimate picture of what sin has done in this organism we call the universe, humanity, and in humanity. He goes into death and he defeats it. He defeats the disease. And then he defeats it by rising from the dead, which is really saying sin has no hold on him. Sin, the virus cannot affect him. In fact, he affects the virus. He has the impact on the virus. He defeats it. It does not defeat him. And then he says, now look, I have made a way. I have made a way for the universe, for all of creation, because it says he is redeeming all of creation, not just humanity. The Bible says he's redeeming all of creation. It says, so now I have made a way. I have made it possible for the virus to be eradicated. And if you will ask me to, what I have accomplished, I will do specifically in you and in your life. And the ultimate goal is a universe, an organism that is completely healthy, meaning absent of sin, devoid of sin. Sin is not there. That's what he calls us to come walk in. And as we walk in that, we then have, because of that, the opportunity to have this reunion with our Creator. This relationship with God. It's something to consider. I don't have time to go to it. I thought I was going to, but if you look in Acts chapter 4, 2 and 4, then what you'll see, and 5, 2, 4, and 5, what you'll see is the first church in a community of believers that were acting as one. They were an organism, a microorganism. And when sin entered into the community, God eradicated it. If you go to Acts chapter 5, Ananias and Sapphira die because they broke some law? Or did they die because they were bringing a virus into a almost perfectly functioning organism that had grown out of Pentecost and was the early church? Is everything that we're talking about when it comes to this question of sin and relationship with God a legal question? And does it have to do with a God that has to punish because it's the requirement of something he or somebody set up? Or is sin in our relationship with God related to the fact that to function well, to be fully redeemed to him, to be whole, to live abundantly as a whole creation, this disease called sin must be eradicated? Jesus came in, blew it up, and offers to us to be the antidote. Consider.